and it is my great pleasure now to introduce our guest host for the evening. Aparna Suresh is a marriage and family therapist by training, but switched careers when she moved to the US 15 years ago. She is now rediscovering her passion for cooking, specifically from Kerala, which is one of the southernmost states in India. So if you can imagine the map of India and all the way down in the point, that's where Kerala is. And she has a Facebook and Instagram page that I'm sure she'll tell us about as well, called Sadhya Club, to share the food and recipes from India, but mainly from her home state. So Aparna, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to your cuisine.
Thank you so much, Matthew and Evan, for organizing and giving me an opportunity to introduce Kerala cuisine. I think when we typically think about Indian food, we think about it's usually the butter chicken masala, the paneer tikka masalas, and the biryanis, and such, which is wonderful and amazing. But it's mostly a northern Indian cuisine. So I'm from the south, and our food is Kerala. Basically means the land of coconuts. Kera means coconut, so Kerala means land of coconuts. So we have an abundance of coconut trees, and we make sure to use it in every form imaginable. So coconut oil, coconut milk, grated coconut, coconut dry coconut, you name it, we use it. We also have a lot of rice. So that's another distinction between North and South. North, they grow wheat. So they do a lot of parathas, rotis. I'm from the South, so a lot of paddy fields, a lot of rice. So our focus is mainly rice. So in Kerala, we use, I just wanted to show you. So North, again, it's white rice mostly. But in the South, I'm not sure if you can see. You able to see this? So it's sort of like a red rice, which is not as polished as the white rice. And they just say that it's just more healthy. I go with that because I love rice. I'm like, yeah, I'll find an excuse to eat more rice. So today, we're just going to make a simple, very basic egg curry with coconut milk. This is a very versatile recipe. If you're vegan and you don't want to eat eggs, you can add any kind of vegetables to it. Or if you don't like eggs and if you want to make it with chicken, you can put chicken. So it's a very forgiving and very versatile recipe. As well as the basic masala is probably a base to any sort of Indian curry. And people add different things or take away a few things here and there to make it taste different. In the South, we also don't use a lot of cream. Coconut is sort of a substitute for cream. So having said that, just going to heat the pan. So if you have any doubts, we're serious about coconut oil. So I buy my stash from Costco. And it's pretty legit. We go through about one a month, maybe. So I've emailed Evan the recipe. So it might seem overwhelming, but you will have the recipe. So I'm adding about 3 to 4 tablespoons of coconut oil. Just love the fragrance of it. I've also pre-boiled the eggs. I did that early on. So I'm just letting it melt. And so this is mustard seeds. Whatever I'm cooking with today are pretty staple ingredients of any Indian household, any home, with maybe the exception of coconut oil, because you either have to love it or you either love it or you don't. But the rest of the ingredients and the rest of the process is pretty standard. So I'm just going to add mustard seeds, about 1 teaspoon. I'm not measuring right now. Just.
Hey, Aparna, we might be having a little bit of mic difficulty, so I don't know if you can adjust a little bit. It was cutting in and out. So I think I
Oh,
heard you say
really?
mustard seed. Is that right?
Yes, mustard seeds.
Okay, perfect. And would you, while you're doing that, could you talk about sort of whole spices versus grinding the spices,
Sure, sure.
and the difference that that makes?
Sure. So, and while we wait for the mustard seeds, so I call it like, I cook with my kids, and we call it dancing. The mustard seeds are sort of dancing, which is like fluttering. You might want to stand a little away, or you can close it with a lid. So Kerala again is a land of spices. So we grow cloves, cinnamon, cardamom, like it's big. Um, I'll find this for you. But we use it in both ways to cook. I didn't want to miss this. That's that's the mustard spluttering. I'm not sure if you can hear this. So once it splutters, this is another very staple of, again, Indian household. Curry leaves. It's an aromatic herb. Most of us grow this at home. Um, since, we moved, since we moved to the suburbs, we're trying to plant this, like garden this. So the next step is just to add this. Don't be scared, it's a matter of a couple of seconds. We're going to add 2 split green chilies. So you can adjust the spice to your liking. If you want it more spicy, you can add more chilies. You can adjust the levels. Matthew, I'll come back to the whole spices in a minute. I'm going to add some cumin, about half a teaspoon. Sort of letting that cook. Once this happens, you're going to add the sliced onions. I have about 1 large or 2 medium sliced onions. I actually prefer the red onions for any cooking, but this is all I had. So we are going with that. I'm just letting it, slow cook in low heat, so that it'll brown slowly. I think the taste is in the onions. So while that saute is, coming back to your question, whole spices versus ground. So the ground spices, cardamom, cloves, cinnamon, ginger, dried ginger, that becomes, when you grind it, that becomes garam masala. I have a paprika bottle, but I made the garam masala, so it's actually it's actually garam masala. Garam masala, I think it's more popular in the north. We use, I think, much more milder ingredients in vegetarian Kerala cooking. Now, Kerala is heavy on meat and seafood as well, because we're on the coast. So seafood is big in Kerala, but I'm a vegetarian, eggetarian, as I call myself. So I use the whole spices, but if you bite into it, it can be a little pungent. So I sort of take it out once the cooking is done. Otherwise, the easy way to go is just ground garam masala. Another tip that I've learned over the years is to buy my masalas in smaller quantities, because it can get stale and you don't want to use funky masala. So just get them in smaller quantities, or like turmeric, which we'll add in a few minutes.
And Aparna, if we were looking for the curry leaves in the grocery store, would you have to go to a specialty store? Do you find them in the general grocery store?
So that's usually a specialty store, a Kerala or an Indian store um, item. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it anywhere else. Not even in like other regular Asian stores. It's
And the chili peppers as well would be a particular type of chili pepper, right? So I think the most mainstream chili peppers in U.S. stores are probably the different types of Mexican chilies, right? So the jalapeno and the serrano
yeah.
and all of those. Would one of those work for this, or do you need that particular type?
No, absolutely. You can use any kind of chilies. It doesn't matter. I just got, so we did a curbside Indian store pickup recently, and I like in that panic mode of quarantine, I bought like tons and tons of chilies. So I have quite a bit. I made some peri sauce with some, and then been using this. I use paprika usually for cooking because the kids eat it and they can't handle the Indian chili powder, which is really spicy. I'm slowly bringing the levels up. But for now, like I use this, which is milder. Again, you can, it's very forgiving. Like if you don't want it too spicy, you can add a little less chili. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of Indian cooking. It's very forgiving, It's, oh, no, I'm sauteing, so it's cooking. Sauteing. My husband is asking why the camera isn't focused on the food. So, have you been to Kerala, Matthew?
I haven't. Unfortunately, I've been to Tamil Nadu and I've been to Pondicherry, which is just the most fascinating place, right? Um, I India is just a remarkable place, and you really need to go a million times to have the million different experiences, right? Because every part is so different. But certainly, what you're talking about with the ingredients, with the curry leaves and the different the chili peppers and things like that, very popular in Tamil Nadu as well.
Right. We are like we're like neighboring states, so we share a lot of things. Like South again, coconut, rice, dosas, idlis. It's all a very prominent South Indian um, part of that family.
Aparna, do you have a sense of why? Is it because of the immigration, or do you have a sense of why so many Indian restaurants in the U.S. are Northern Indian cuisine?
I feel like the representation, I think, and B, I feel like it's milder for the palate. Let's take the most popular butter chicken masala. It has cream, so it cuts down any level of spice. And I feel like Kerala or generally South Indian food, it's no joke. Like you're hit in the face with spice. Like there's chili powder, green chilies, like add, bam, bam, bam. Like there's so much spice. So I feel like it's harder to try when you try a new cuisine. You don't want to be maybe that, but it's yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's totally fair. I think it's just fascinating because there's so many really unique and interesting dishes so you mentioned idli, right? Which I hope that everybody can find a way to try idli because it's one of my favorite foods. You eat it with the coconut chutney and it's excellent, right?
Yeah.
But if you mention that to a lot of folks in the US, they won't have an idea of what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's yeah, hopefully, Kerala cuisine is, it'll come in the forefront a little bit more and, people can experience. I feel like dosa is kind of becoming more and more mainstream. Like people have tried like the Indian crepes. So versatile. I also feel like it's a tad more, it requires more work, I think, the soaking and the fermentation. But once you do it and you get the hang of it, and then it's a breeze. Or you go to the Indian store and buy the idli batter. Done. But yeah, we are in the process of trying to expose our kids to Kerala cuisine. We face some resistance from time to time. But we're like, well, this is what's happening, But so they love dosas and they love puris and idlis and upma. Upma is again another very easy recipe with semolina. So just it's slowly becoming brown. I also usually sometimes make this ahead and freeze. So this is a little bit time consuming. So I have it in hand in the freezer. So I just dump some whenever I need. So that's another thing that, you know, you can cook in bulk and maybe freeze a little. So this is getting brown, and a little bit of this beauty, ginger garlic paste. So this is nothing but equal parts ginger and equal parts garlic. If you don't have this, don't worry about it. You can chop up maybe a tablespoon or two, a tablespoon of ginger and a tablespoon of garlic, crush it and add it to this.
Hey, Aparna, what's your recommendation for storing fresh ginger because it can dehydrate, right?
Yes. So that's a tricky one because again, what I do is buy in smaller quantities. That's all you can do, or you can wash it, peel it, grind it, and then freeze it. And then freeze it into, like, you know, smaller. Let me see if
And while Aparna is doing that, if you are not, you're certainly welcome to jump in with any questions that you have. If you are not speaking at the moment, if you would mute your microphone, please. I think we might have a little bit of audio interference coming through, so we appreciate your help with that.
So I buy chopped basil in these tiny containers from Trader Joe's. So I sort of, once I'm done with this, I wash it, and you can store, you know, so it's like a small pocket of ginger, and that's all you technically need in a dish, one or two small tops. So back to the, just going to add about a teaspoon of the ginger garlic paste.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Did I hear that she was using, I hope I pronounced this right, G-H-E-E, clarified butter? Is that correct?
Ghee is correct, but in this case, I'm using coconut oil.
Oh, okay. You can substitute coconut for oil for ghee?
For ghee, yeah, absolutely. I would, for this particular dish though, I'll probably stick with like vegetable oil, canola oil. I mean, ghee is so tasty, so I don't think you can go wrong.
Well, I'm supposed to be non-gluten and non-dairy, and I think
okay,
is dairy, right? Because it's from butter.
It's clarified butter.
Okay, so I was like, uh-oh, I think I heard G, and then also I heard, but you can use coconut oil. Great, because I love coconut oil as a great dairy substitute. And then I think I heard semolina, which is wheat. So what are you using that's semolina?
So semolina is not part of today's dish. It's for another very popular Kerala breakfast called Upma. It's like sort of like a more solid porridge, you could say. But today semolina is not making an appearance. It's only an egg curry. We're doing an egg curry.
Okay, so what are your noodles or your little thin noodles made?
So I think again it's made out of. Let me see. I have some here. Are you talking about these guys? The vermicelli?
Oh, vermicelli. Okay, maybe I joined late and didn't catch in on that, but yeah, if that's non-gluten, okay, great. Vermicelli, right. Coconut oil. Okay, thank you.
Of course. So far, just to give you a brief recap, all we've done is we've added some coconut oil, added some mustard seeds, cumin, a couple of slit green chilies, curry leaves, onions sauteed down to golden brown, and I added about a teaspoon of ginger garlic paste.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, of course.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to do, now I think is the main part, I think, that I focus on. Everything else is sort of, it's fine. I'm adding the masalas. So I'm adding about 1 tablespoon of coriander powder. I'll be honest, I usually typically don't measure anything, but I had to for this occasion. I got it from Whole Foods. And I'm doing about half a teaspoon of turmeric. So turmeric is one spice that you don't want to, it can overpower the dish. So you might want to add just a little bit. Turmeric powder. And then comes the chili powder. So again, I'm just using this. About 1 tablespoon, I'd say.
So Aparna, I think it's a good example for folks who think that Indian cooking has so many spices and they could never handle it. What do you say when people tell you how many spices and seasonings Indian food uses?
We just say that that's what makes it special, I guess. And that's what makes it unique. It's a very rich, cuisine. Hi. Sorry, I'm just saying hi to my friend here. I think Preeta would agree that, it's a very rich culture, rich cuisine. Once I think it's the basic gravy that, it's intimidating in the beginning when you start cooking. So what I'm showing today is just the basic gravy, and you can add anything to it. For people who missed this in the beginning, like if you don't like eggs, you can use potatoes or any vegetables to this. Or if you want to make chicken, you can add chicken. Like, it's so versatile and so forgiving, like most of Indian recipes. If you don't have one ingredient, don't worry about it. It's okay. So yeah, I'd say give it a try. All will be okay. Have a glass of wine. That makes everything better.
Hi, Apu.
Hi.
I wanted to add to what Aparna said. What she is showing is like the basic. If you get this basic sauce right, you can pretty much add anything to it. And really, Indian food is not that intimidating. There are 2 or 3 staples that you can just put in there. And she used potatoes as an example, but you could throw tofu in there. Really, anything that would like kind of capture that flavor. It could be anything. Yeah, it's not. It does seem a little intimidating at first, and some of the spice mixtures can seem intimidating, but there are 2 or 3 basics that if you get those right, that those actually serve you. They go a long way. Is that right, Aparna?
Oh, 100%, Preeta. I mean, I feel like you're right. It's so scary. I'm like, oh my God, cinnamon, coriander powder, this, that. But once you have this basic, which is turmeric powder, coriander powder, chili powder, and maybe garam masala if you'd like, I think that sort of covers. And the point, I think this is something that I've learned from my parents, is to cook the masalas till the raw smell goes. You don't want to rush this process. That's just it. Just really cook the masalas for a few minutes. So you might want to invest, some time in doing that. Right, Preeta? Don't know if she left.
I'm here. I muted myself. I'm still here.
So I'm just adding a couple of tablespoons of water. So again, cook the masalas. I'm going to close the lid for a few minutes. While that cooks, I boiled some eggs, and why am I going slits this, make like, tiny slits. So when we put it in the gravy, like it sort of takes in all the flavors, of the flavor seeps in. You can also cut it in half, whatever way you'd like to eat it. I have 2 kids out of 1 is super picky about his food. So if he sees the yolk, he won't eat it. I mean, I don't know. So once that's done, I'm just going to add the eggs. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. So you can use any coconut milk. I tried everything that's available in the US, I think. And this is something that I love. The taste is amazing. I've tried the organic brands. I have to say, I still prefer this. So I'm adding about half a cup. This is about 13.5 ounce. Adding half a cup and giving it a good stir. And close and let it cook for a couple minutes. I also made some of that rice that we were talking about. It's called Kerala Kuttari or Matta rice. For anyone who missed us earlier, this is what it actually looks like. I like to cook my rice with some water and then just drain it. So in my mind, I'm like, some of the starch, we are getting rid of some of the starch. If you're making basmati rice, it's 1 cup rice, 2 cups water. As soon as it reaches a boil, turn it off, close it with a lid, and it sort of cooks. I prefer the draining method. I can justify the amount of rice we eat by that. So
in some families, the water that you drain from the rice, they call that kanji, and they might add like salt and just a little tiny dash of pepper. And if somebody's feeling sick, they might give that kanji, the starch. If somebody's sick and hasn't had something to eat for a while, they might use that. That's more common, I think, in Tamil Nadu than it is in Kerala, where Aparna is from. But Aparna, do they do kanji in Kerala too?
yeah, a lot. I mean, again, it's now considered more as like a sick meal. But I have to say, I love it with like a papad, with like a Kerala papad and like some pickle and some mango chutney. Oh my God, it's so good. People in Kerala also eat it the next day, next morning. They don't keep it in the fridge or anything. It's called parang kanji, which is like meaning old kanji. It's like a porridge. They say it has massive health benefits.
Correct. Right.
Right. As a breakfast. We haven't tried that.
It's the Indian version of the chicken soup for the soul.
That's so true. So true.
So yeah, the word for I saw that your rice is you steaming. You steam it, right?
The rice?
Yes, the rice. You steam it?
So we boil it in water.
Okay. Because I saw your container. I saw your cooker. It looked like
the pressure cooker.
I think it's a pressure cooker. Okay.
It's a pressure cooker. I think I got about 6 of these for my wedding 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
It's a standard gift. Everybody gets a pressure cooker. And the flour vase.
And how you can do with that cooker?
Oh, so our day starts with this. So I cook everything. It's just a faster cooking process. Now, the newer version is the Instant Pot that's becoming very popular here. I just can't get my brain around that. So I'm like, I'm using my trusted pressure cooker. I have this in like 5 or 6 different sizes. So basically, it just, I can find the lid. So this is the very dirty lid that I made the rice in. So this is the pressure release. It's a faster cooking method. Like the rice gets cooked in, let's say, under 10 minutes. This rice that otherwise takes about 20-30 minutes. I cook my quinoa, my lentils, chickpeas, anything that you can think about.
Yeah, if I may, Aparna, basically you put a little bit of water in the bottom of the cooker. Some people directly put the rice and the water in the cooker too. My mom is one of those people. But in the pressure cookers, what you can do is you can put some water in the bottom of the cooker, and then you place your raw rice and your water in a container within it, and you submerge it in the water, and then you close it, and you basically steam it. I'm sorry, my 5-year-old has an opinion.
Hi, Jay.
So it's a steaming method. You can also cook meat and stuff in it, although we're not, we don't eat meat in our house. You can cook meat and stuff in pressure cookers as well.
Thank you.
So what I forgot, and this tip sometimes happens, is to add the tomatoes. So this sort of comes right after the masalas are cooked properly. I sliced it beautifully and kept it on the island and completely forgot about it. But again, it's a very forgiving recipe and it'll be fine without the tomatoes. I can use it as a salad. That usually comes right after the masalas are cooked. But thank you, Preeta. Yes, it's I don't think you'll find a single Indian household without a pressure cooker. So this is bubbling beautifully. And I'm going to add the rest of the coconut milk. I'm going to add a little water in this. I think we come from a generation of not wanting to waste even a single drop of anything. So I'm just going to wash and pour the pan. Another quick spoon. And I'm going to cook for another 2 minutes, and that's really it. And I'll serve it with rice tonight, or you can eat it with, there's a Kerala version of the parathas from the North India. It's called porota, which is, I think, in every Malayali, we have people from Kerala called Malayalis, speak Malayalam. In every Malayali's bone, I think, parota. It's like a comfort food, street food. So, yeah.
And Aparna, I know that we were talking earlier about sort of accompaniments and things, and chutneys came up. And there are just a million different types of chutney, right? And I would love to hear your take on and maybe for the benefit of others too, what a chutney is and how it's used.
So chutneys coming from Kerala, I mean, it's all over India, 100 different versions of it. But as a Malayali from Kerala, our basic chutney is coconut. Again, coconut chutney. Coconut chutney can be an accompaniment. Coconut chutney, which is sour, which is by tamarind or with raw mangoes. Usually go with kanyi, what Preeta was talking about earlier. Kanyi or just rice. It's a big distinction. Without the tamarind and without the mango, you usually eat it for dosas, which is the Indian crepes, or idli. So the basic chutney is again grated coconut, and so this is what I buy here because I tried buying the whole coconut from Whole Foods and grating and all that. It was too much work. So I have about 10 packets of this in the fridge. The basic coconut chutney is ground coconut, ginger. If you're making a white coconut, you use green chilies, or if you want a red chutney, you can do chili powder or dried red chilies. You can store it in the fridge or freeze it. It's an amazing accompaniment to a variety of dishes. Preeta, do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, you pretty much captured it, Aparna. So basically, a chutney is anything that you can make with a combination of either a vegetable or a fruit, because you'll even see people making chutney with and various herbs and spices. They can be cooked, they can be pickled, they can be raw like a relish. And a lot of times, if you don't have like the egg curry that Aparna made tonight, if you don't have something like that and you're in a hurry, a lot of times people will have a, especially the part of India I come from, you have a assortment of chutneys at home, and you can just like cook rice and then you eat it with a chutney. So the coconut chutneys are great with, and again, like in Kerala, coconut is a main ingredient. Coconut milk is main ingredient in a lot of things. But you can have mango chutney. You can even have in Andhra Pradesh, they make chutneys out of like amaranth leaves, all sorts of things, really. A combination, so if you can think of like a combination of fruit and vegetables and a variety of spices, either cooked or pickled or raw, which is used as an accompaniment for various dishes. That's basically what a chutney is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah. And I'm wishing that I had a lineup of chutneys here. Most of the cooking that I do, I think people may know is Mexican cooking. And the same in Mexican cooking, you have your salsas, right? And you have your green and your red and all sorts of different, you have fruit salsa and all sorts of different things. So yeah, a nice accompaniment or on its own.
My mom makes, so my parents are in the restaurant industry. Like they have a small restaurant. It's actually an Indo-Chinese restaurant, not a South Indian restaurant, which is very popular again in India. So my mom makes this two versions of chutneys without coconut. So one is a green chili chutney, which is basically green chilies, ground green chilies with salt and coconut oil. That's it. Another version is you saute shallots and dried red chilies in some oil. You grind it. My mouth is watering as I'm talking about this. You grind it and then you add again coconut oil, salt. That can be stored, not the green chilies, but the red chili chutney can be stored in the fridge and used it. We even use it for like sandwiches, like a potato sandwich. We use it as like a base. You can use it to make kati rolls, which is basically just, rotis or parathas with fillings and rolled it. Quick street foods or quick meals. It's always in the fridge, if that makes sense.
I have a question about chutneys.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
One of my favorite Indian chutneys is mint and ground onion. Is there a recipe like half mint, half onion, and then what is your base? Coconut oil again? You know which one I'm talking about, mint and onion?
Is it the one with mustard seeds or just plain?
Plain.
So in that case, I think, are you talking about mint and coriander, cilantro chutney?
All I know is I have 3 kinds of mint in my garden, and when I go to an Indian restaurant, my favorite chutney is the mint and white onion. That's all I know. So
okay. So mint alone to me specifically is a bit strong. But if you're using it, as a dip, in smaller quantities, I think it's fine. But I would do maybe half mint, half cilantro.
Okay.
And then I prefer shallots, but if you don't have it, any onion is fine.
Okay. And then what's your base? Is the base in oil with that mint and onion?
If it's just ground without mustard, that typically means that there's no oil. I could be wrong, but my understanding is that in that case, there's no oil. It's probably cilantro, mint, a green chili, onions, ginger. I could be wrong.
If it's something that the Indian restaurants serve here, a lot of times Indian restaurants will kind of modify it to taste, to serve the tastes of what they think their clientele might like. So you could, if what I'm hearing you describe correctly, like Aparna said, you could do mint and coriander, which is basically cilantro leaves. And then sometimes you can even add like a little bit of a Greek yogurt to it to cut the taste of the mint a little bit, because that could get pretty overwhelming. So you can do like mint, coriander, green chili, and yogurt. That's it, and add some salt to it. That you have a mint coriander chutney right there.
And that'll last in the refrigerator for what, a week or something? Or?
A week, no more than that. I wouldn't make a huge quantities of it, particularly because you're not putting a lot of preservatives or anything in it. But again, each family, I can bet, right, like Aparna's family makes chutneys different from my family versus, probably like, your meatloaf recipe. Probably everybody has a different way to do it. So it's difficult to say what exactly your favorite Indian restaurants puts in it, but I've seen a lot of Indian restaurants here serve a sort of some combination of that mint and cilantro and green chili chutney.
Yeah, I know there's mint in there because I can taste it. So that's what I like in my garden. So I might just try that. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Mint is also such a wonderful garnish for like rice dishes or, yeah, we use it a lot in just biryanis or like pulav if you're making it. Comes out, the fragrance that it adds is amazing. So I think this is how we typically serve it. I probably will use a little bit of mango pickle. Which this is spicy. I like it spicier the better. So I have about 15 containers of different kinds of Kerala or South Indian pickles, which is mainly in chili powder or red chilies. Yeah, so I think that sort of sums up our recipe for the day. I don't know if I missed anything. Oh, another kind of starch, we talked about rice. Another kind of very common starch in Kerala is tapioca or cassava, I think it's called here. So it's called the poor man's food because it's easy to cultivate. It's very cheap to buy and it's versatile. You can use it in many different forms. So those two are sort of the main two starches, I think, from Kerala. Thank you for joining. Happy to take
Aparna, thank you so much. What a wonderful treat to experience this part of Indian cuisine. I know everybody enjoyed the recipe and the context that you offered tonight. Does anybody have any final questions before we say goodnight?
She's got to eat it. She's got to taste it.
I have a question.
I'm going to do that.
I have a question.
Sure.
I cannot remember the name of the leaf, the one for the you put it before. Okay, can you describe a little bit what is a kind of flavor they will give, and you can substitute with some other leaf or not?
So this is called curry leaf.
What is the kind of flavor in that?
I would say every Kerala household or every Indian household uses this commonly. I think it adds like a very earthy texture to it. It's an aromatic herb.
Like
so
a bay leaf?
Sort of the, I wouldn't say bay leaf. I feel like bay leaf is stronger. This is much more subtle, I think. That's at least my take on this.
Okay, because it's if you cannot find it, I just would like to know what you can substitute with that.
Substitute. That's a really good question. If I personally, when I cook and if I don't have curry leaves, I just skip that part because I don't want to compromise the taste of the dish, because I feel like cilantro has a very strong flavor. But that's a really good question. Maybe I need to start trying to add other different leaves, but I don't know what Preeta thinks about it.
No, I agree. I think if you don't find curry leaf, I would probably skip it because it's a unique flavor. Um, and if you don't find it, it's probably not worth trying to find a substitute. But I will say that it is, if you go to an Indian store, it's very commonly available in non-Indian stores. Most of them carry it fresh. A lot of them carry frozen versions of it too. I prefer the fresh, like the one that Aparna was showing you. But yeah, if you don't find it, it adds to it, but you can always do without it, if that makes any sense.
You can't substitute with curry powder?
No, it's not the same. It's just, it's called curry leaf. Curry powder is a mix of various other spices. And I have a whole other, I don't think Aparna or Matthew want me to go into how I feel about the word curry powder.
We all, I think Indians, like, we share that feeling because
yeah,
first time I heard curry powder was when I moved here. I'm like, oh, do you, like, what is, like, I think it's an easier word, you know, it's a quick,
right.
Yeah, but.
So curry powder really is something that was created for the Western palates by not just our colonial history, but also perpetuated by some of the Indian restaurants here. I think Aparna and I would probably stay away from anything that has the label curry powder on it. We prefer to make our own like mix of spices. So it's really not the same thing. So I wouldn't, I don't know how to get in. Maybe I can send Matthew or Evan a document that explains what curry powder is and what sort of the Indian demographics feelings on curry powder are.
Yeah, appreciate it. If you actually were willing to send that out, I'd be more than happy to email that.
Sure. I mean, either Aparna or we can probably put something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's good to know. I struck a cultural chord, so thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad chord. It's just it's sort of a little bit of an amusing chord.
I have a very liter of curry powder in my pantry, and now I'm ashamed.
No, please don't.
Please don't be. Please don't be. That was not the intention at all.
Okay.
I think it's similar to what happens. You know, I think people may know that I lived on the border between the U.S. and Mexico for a few years, and there's a certain shame that comes around Tex-Mex cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
That people say, oh, well, it's not authentically Mexican, so therefore you can't like it. You can like Tex-Mex food, right? It just isn't the same as the different cuisines within Mexico.
Exactly. That's a great analogy, Matthew.
Thank you so much.
Oh, of course, yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Preeta. Thank you. Yes, it was fun to introduce Kerala cuisine, the not so popular cuisine too.
So, besides curry powder, what would there? I keep hearing something that like a curry dish was quote unquote curry dish was invented in Great Britain. Is that true? And what specifically is that the quote unquote British invention is?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Again, this is a very touchy topic. I think
so maybe not to get too much into it. So basically, the Matthew spoke to the complexity of Indian spices earlier, and when some of the British, I guess, people tried the Indian cuisine, a lot of the complexity of Indian spices and what you combine in what proportion to other Indian spices can get a little complicated if you're not immersed in it. So what was invented was this sort of easy version for the British to understand and to say or state that this is quote unquote Indian food. And it usually has a combination of like the most common Indian spices of like maybe turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom powder. It's a mixture. It's a combination. Versus where you will see in most Indian homes, you're not using the same curry powder for every single thing that you're doing. You're using a different set of combination of spices based on what you're cooking. What goes with idli and dosa may not go with, like, if you put like curry powder, and that may not go with like let's say chicken tikka masala that you might get from your from the Indian restaurant, if that makes any sense. So it was kind of like this shortcut version that was I wouldn't say invented by the British, but coined by the British to make it easier for Western audiences to understand and to incorporate Indian food into their culture. One of my biggest I think pet peeves is when people tell me, oh, I don't like Indian food because I don't like curry. And I'm like, you don't even know what you're saying, because curry is not even a thing. So I get on this whole like path of, that's not even a thing. It wasn't even a thing. But anyway, yeah.
But yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And as speaking to the complexity of Indian cuisine, it's kind of interesting because so when most of us, most Americans are familiar with, of course, Northwestern Indian cuisine, but when I went to school, when I went for university down in Rolla, most of the Indians there are from probably like central or southern India, like especially like Hyderabad, those places. And so when they had Diwali, they hosted Diwali, and then they had big dinner and stuff. It was all actually mostly southern Indian cuisine, and especially a lot of vegetarian dishes that dominated.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's interesting seeing more southern dishes appear here as well.
Yeah, and I'm biased. I'm from southern India. My father is from Hyderabad, and I don't know about you, Aparna, but I'm biased towards South Indian food.
Anytime.
Yeah. And so like North Indian food, and again, like Indian food varies so much. When people say Indian food, it's just such a broad term to capture such a complexity and diversity of cuisines, that I would say I'm probably more biased towards the middle part of India and down, the cuisines from that part of India versus as opposed to the northern parts of India. It's different. It's very different.
And on the southern side, how would you make the distinction between like Kerala and Tamil cooking?
Apu, you want to take that?
I think Kerala and Tamil cooking honestly are very similar, because south of India has a very similar cooking pattern in terms of, I think it's generally more spicier. The food is more spicier. We don't use a lot of cream or butter, I would say. I think North and South can be vastly distinguished between wheat eaters and rice eaters. And then South is more coconut. Kerala especially is a lot of coconut oil, milk, like we discussed earlier, grated coconut, dried coconut, whatever in coconut world you can find. Very heavy on rice, even in Tamil Nadu and in Kerala, I would say, heavy on rice. But having said that, there are still subtle differences, right? The traditional dishes that you make. There's still a fight between Kerala and Tamil Nadu about who made dosa. So we say, I mean, being a Malayali, I say,
there's no fight. It was us.
See, there you go.
Anyways, again, thank you.
Of course.
And on that note,
but I think she
everybody,
captured it perfectly. That's basically it. I mean, Southern India shares a lot of commonalities, and for all the joking that I do, I love Kerala cuisine because of the excessive use of coconut, and I love coconut, and that's a lot of similarities that the Tamil Nadu foods share. There's also a lot of tamarind use in Tamil Nadu, whether it's in sauces or sambars and things like that. So yeah, I think she captured it.
I think also a lot of, I think when you come from India, being a vegetarian is very easy to be a vegetarian in India, because there's so many different vegetables and so many different methods that you can make make vegetables. And, I've been a vegetarian my whole life. I have 2 kids who are absolute carnivores. So I'm now navigating the world of meat and, bacon and chicken and all of that, because that's what they love. And I don't have any problems in them eating it. Though there is a religious connotation to it, but that's another whole other episode. But yeah, so.
Well, Aparna, we are so appreciative, and you've given me an idea on another program on religious diversity in India, which I think would be absolutely fascinating. But we are just so appreciative of your time and sharing your passion for South Indian and particularly Kerala cuisine with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
And everybody, we have some interesting programs coming up this week. We hope that you'll check out irckc.org. We've got a program tomorrow evening on international cooperation in responding to crisis that should be very interesting. We've got some great language lessons coming up. We've got some career series programs as well. So thank you all for your interest and your involvement, and we look forward to seeing you soon.